I am happy to welcome you to the legislative chambers and today to join with my colleagues, Assemblywoman Dee Dee Barrett and Senator Greg Ball, and finally providing a degree of detail on what the adoption of the New York State budget means specifically to Dutchess County and our ability now to move forward with the repeal of the sales tax on residential energy sources. I admittedly I found myself over the last 3 or 4 days hearkening back to an old adage that John Kennedy used after, sadly, the Bay of Pigs, when he suggested, this was a fairly old axiom, when he suggested that success has 100 fathers and failure is but an orphanhood. I will tell you that Dutchess County has, for the last year, been focused on trying to manage our budget, provide core services, all within the context of overwhelming and burdensome state mandates and a lagging economy. Thanks to really the combined effort of a community, irrespective of party affiliation or whether or not individuals held elected office, but as a community, business leaders, community leaders, and elected officials have come together over the last several months and most significantly over the last several weeks to articulate our message to our state legislative delegation. Dutchess County has a few very unique and critical needs, and the adoption of the New York State budget does provide, thanks to the leadership of Senator Greg Ball and Assemblywoman Dee Dee Barrett, very specific funding assistance to help relieve us of some of that need. I do want to acknowledge the combined efforts of the Dutchess County Legislature, specifically acknowledge my colleagues in county government, County Comptroller Jim Coughlin, Chairman of the Dutchess County Legislature Rob Rollison, and the leadership of both caucuses, Assembly. Legislator Angela Flesland, the Majority Leader, and Legislator Barbara Jeter Jackson, the Minority Leader. In a bipartisan effort, this legislature not only adopted a budget, but had articulated and continues to articulate a need for substantive and continuous mandate relief. I also want to acknowledge my former colleagues and our representatives in the state legislature who also supported the adoption of the state budget, 2 of whom are here with us today, Assemblyman Frank Scartatos and Senator Terry Gibson. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. And thank you for your support of the state budget and within it, this specific need. I promised that I wasn't going to speak very long, but that's obviously nothing anyone would ever believe. Well, they'd hold me to it, but they wouldn't believe it. But I do think it is necessary before Senator Ball and Assemblywoman Barrett to share their comments, just to remind the community why we are where we are and what effectively will have to happen over the course of the next few months and certainly over the next few years in order to accommodate for the repeal of the sales tax on residential energy sources and continue to provide critical services. First and foremost, this county is not unlike any county across the state. Our budget is dictated 70% by federal and state mandates. That is a reality that does not change today. Those mandates really run the gamut of government service, but they continue to crowd out the ability for county governments, in particular this county government, to continue to provide those core services. Over the course of the last 4 years, Dutchess County has seen unique challenges. A nearly 70% increase in social service caseload, part of the community and family service caseload because of the lagging economy and other demands. Those have increased. In particular, we have seen continued and accelerated growth in the area of providing mental health services. This is important because the assistance that is secured in this budget helps Dutchess County address what is a unique Dutchess County challenge. That challenge is this: over the course of the last decade, but over the course of the last 3 years, this county has seen 2 state psychiatric center closures. Well, excuse me, 1 psychiatric center closure, 1 developmental disability center closure. Those closures compounded on top of the closure of the first segment, if you will, of the Hudson River Psych Center and the closure of the Harlem Valley Psych Center has made the delivery of mental health services more and more critical. And the challenge to keep up that much more difficult. Within that, we have seen continued growth in our criminal justice system. Why? With no state facilities available and limited county resources to provide for these particular county residents in need, many find themselves in the criminal justice system. The assistance that is secured in this budget includes relief for Dutchess County to continue our efforts to provide mental health services to that growing need, and also to provide correctional services, assistance through alternatives to incarceration. Why 86% of our inmate population, if you will, are already within a fairly robust ATI program. Those services continue to be challenged as we attempt to overcome the need to address inmate population needs. Now, what I also want to say is the 2014 budget was adopted with the sales tax on residential energy sources for a reason. First, it was determined to be the lesser of all evils. Now, the public reacted to that, certainly, and we expected that. But this legislature, and I remind you, this legislature, in a bipartisan manner, adopted a budget. In a bipartisan manner, adopted the budget. In order to pay for those bills, the budget needs to be balanced. Yes, the majority voted in favor of rescinding the exemption, sales tax exemption on residential energy sources because it was a temporary fix and a recurring revenue. The assistance we receive today is limited, and this county will still need recurring cuts in recurring revenue in order to provide critical services. The legislature, moving forward with the repeal of the sales tax on residential energy sources and relying on this state assistance, will still need to make subsequent reductions. To those who have suggested that perhaps we didn't need the resource to begin with, I remind you that $5.2 million over the next 12 months is not the same as $6.4 million over the next 6 months, which is our current fiscal year. So Dutchess County will have to make continued cuts, and we will meet our state legislature more than halfway. Their assistance will require us to do the same. Now, since, however, January 1st, the budget that was adopted enabled Dutchess County to respond to 10,000 sheriff deputy calls, 10,000 since January. We responded to 34 separate snow storms and snow removal events, including extending assistance to the city of Poughkeepsie. This county answered more than 40,000 emergency calls and dispatched more than 27,000 emergency responses since January. And our 24/7 mental health helpline responded to 5,500 calls since January. None of those services can be provided without reoccurring revenue and/or reoccurring and substantive mandate relief. That said, the case that was made by my colleagues, many of whom joined us in this call for assistance, that call was heard, and thanks to the leadership of Senator Ball and Assemblywoman Barrett, we are here today. So I am going to pass the podium off to them, and just to say to you, to Assemblywoman Barrett, who now represents part of what was once my assembly district, or the assembly district I represented, I guess that's the, and Senator Ball, whom I sat behind in the state assembly, wondering what would he say next. These two individuals have worked very hard on our behalf, and I would ask you to join me in thanking them. A community responded, and our elected officials took up the cause. Ladies and gentlemen, Assemblywoman Dee Dee Barrett.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. This is truly a win day, and with the opening of baseball season, that seems like a really great way to start the season. I really want you to realize that this is good news for our constituents, and it's very good news for all of us who represent this beautiful county, Dutchess County, and that's many of us here. I particularly want to thank Senator Gibson for being here. my colleague, Assemblyman Frank Scartatos, for being here, and for your votes that helped make this budget happen. And it does take a village. It really is a matter of people coming together and working together for the benefit of our constituents, and that's what this is all about. And that's what happens when government actually works, because government can work, and it should work for the people. I was elected to represent my constituents and bring their voice to Albany, and I believe that that's what I've done, and I'm very proud that working with my colleagues and working with the staff of the Assembly, that we were able to bring $3.5 million to Dutchess County to offset services that are really important services, and what more important than mental health in our community, so that the county executive and the legislature are able to repeal this energy tax, which is, we have been hearing from our constituents from the time that it was first discussed at the budget level about how onerous and how overwhelming this has been, even before they knew what a crummy winter this was going to be and how high their energy costs were going to be just on the bills alone. So the timing of this was kind of a perfect, horrible storm for Dutchess County. And to be able to bring this kind of relief is really what I believe I was elected to do, and I'm very proud to have done that. I also want to acknowledge that this is a short-term solution, so we have work ahead. And we've been working, many of us in different ways, on real mandate relief. I started working with the county executive on looking at universal pre-K that's truly universal, so that the county no longer has to carry the burden of special needs pre-K. And this is something that we will continue to work legislatively to try to introduce to bring long-term relief. And then there's other things too. We are very happy to be able to work with colleagues on both sides of the aisle, and I thank Senator Ball for his work, and I thank the county executive for his strong leadership and innovative leadership to make this happen. And I thank all you for your support and your continued support to be sure that we represent the best interests of our constituents here in Dutchess County. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, so if I say anything wrong, just grab me, okay? Yeah, that's okay. I know it's okay. It's a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank, a lot of people talk about Albany as being the land that common sense forgot. This is a perfect example of what can happen when you work together. You don't care about politics, but you care only about the people. And I think this is also the opportunity for, as a community, to send a statement statewide that it's time for an up or down vote on a comprehensive unfunded mandate relief package in Albany. We were promised that. We said that was, we were told that that was going to happen. We all know what the unfunded mandates are. There are several hundred of them, and they are listed from top to bottom. Some are tens of thousands of dollars, some are tens of millions of dollars, but and some of them are going to require a tough vote. Many of you here today, all of you here today, are familiar with a tough vote. Albany has to be willing to take that next step and have an up or down vote on that. I'm from Pauling, so when this energy tax hit, I certainly heard from my friends and my family and my constituencies. And also, I'll tell you what, when we talk about the closing of these facilities, whether it be Harlem Valley or Hudson, I think some of you know that my mother worked at Harlem Valley Psychiatric Center for nearly 30 years. My father actually worked there. I think sometime my grandmother worked at Harlem Valley. When we lost that facility, that community was devastated, and to this day is still dealing with that reality. And Dutchess County never got the relief. But I'll tell you this, there are a lot of counties throughout New York State that have issues and that are facing fiscal crises. You're very special. You have an assemblywoman. There are a lot of show horses out there. She's a workhorse. She made this happen in her majority and in her side of the legislature. By working together, it is very difficult. And if you look at the communities that receive this type of direct aid, this is a very limited instance where you had everybody working together. Mark and Rob Rollison had a pitch tent in the Senate chamber, okay? I think that we were about to evict them for being homeless for a while, for being vagrants. They were in that Senate chamber so long, and I'm sure you can say the same on the Assembly side. I was getting texts and phone calls from Mark at 7 o'clock in the morning, okay, and 10 o'clock at night. And there are a lot of counties, and I represent three, ma'am, you represent 3 counties, or you have?
I represent a bunch of them.
Okay.
10.
10, you got 10.
Oh, 2 counties, I was talking
Two
about
counties.
towns, I was right.
So I have 3 counties, and I'll tell you, this is the only, and all these counties are facing fiscal crisis. This county executive was outside of that Senate chamber, pulling members off the floor and fighting for this county. So this is what happens when people don't care about politics, they care about people, and they get good things done. Let's make sure that the governor gets the message, that the legislature on both sides gets the message. Let's have an up or down vote on comprehensive unfunded mandate relief this year before the election, provide the relief that is necessary to make sure that we don't have Groundhog Day all over again for many other counties throughout the state. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
He obviously didn't get my text at 4:30 a.m. He just waited. So, at this point in time, what I will advise for the media in particular, but certainly for the community as a whole, the leadership of the county legislature will be meeting both today and again on Thursday and again on Monday to determine the process to begin the official repeal of the residential sales tax on residential energy sources. Once that has been finalized, I assume both caucuses will want to proceed with no delay, and that I assume will be finalized among the legislative leadership in the very next couple of days. That sounds about right. Did I get that right? We were the 22nd county to have repealed the exemption on residential, the sales tax on residential energy sources, and we now will be the first to reinstate that sales tax exemption. With that, at this point in time, for members of the media only, we'll take a couple questions. My colleagues, and I would encourage Senator Gibson and Assemblyman Skarkatos, I'm sure I don't have to encourage them, we're all elected officials, they will be available to answer questions as well. The media is here to do that, but if there are questions for the 3 of us at this point, we'll take them. If we can't answer them, we will do our level best to artfully dodge them. Yeah.
Mark, you said, mentioned a couple of days. I got an email yesterday from one of your constituents wondering whether by Monday this thing would be repealed because he's getting an oil delivery. Can you be more specific about or get a sense of what the timing is?
Well, we work in a democratic process. So first, the legislature will have to sponsor, this county legislature will have to sponsor a measure to repeal, or to reinstate the exemption on residential energy sources. In doing so, the State Department of Taxation and Finance has a 90-day repeal standard, and we will proceed from that point. But we'll be meeting in detail with the legislature. The tax is not an immediate repeal. There is a timetable established by the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance.
So Mark, what you're saying is it would be at least 3 months before this is...
What I'm saying is that the standard established by the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance is 90 days. We've not yet met with legislative leadership to determine what the next steps will be, but I suspect probably by committee day, I assume by Thursday, the caucuses will have it. Keeping in mind, and we're not doing this intentionally, but this is this is a legislative process. The legislative leadership has to meet, and the legislators get to determine what the next steps are.
Understood, but to clarify, even if it passed Monday, it would be another 3 months before...
What I'm telling you is that there is a standard established by the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance, which is 90 days. I don't have more information than that. Thanks. Other questions? Seeing none? Terrific, ladies. Oh, I'm sorry, Patricia. Oh, I almost... Daley Freeman.
So I'm really interested in the $3.5 million, right? You talk about specific needs and mandate
Yes.
needs and that sort of thing. There was $350,000 additional added to the budget for mental health.
No, that's a good question because none of us in our comments clarified. So what I'll offer is the state, the budget includes $3.5 million secured to assist the county in responding to a spike in mental health caseload. It also includes a $1.4 million appropriation to assist the county in providing alternative to incarceration services to our growing inmate population, and based on some state calculation, includes an additional $350,000 to react specifically to the closure of the Hudson River Psych Center. Yes.
The what, the Hudson River or the Wassaic?
Well, the 350 is Wassaic or Hudson River?
We can clarify that.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it is Hudson River. Keep in mind, the only reason I say this is that these dollars are an extension of what is state practice and law. When I served in the State Assembly, I want to say, I dare say, it was during Governor Spitzer's short tenure, there was a change in state law that established, and I believe it was Assemblyman Aubrey that fought for this, that if the state were to close a state facility in a community, there is a calculation that is made, and the county impacted would benefit. The way I understand it,
Investment money is based on the number of beds.
yeah, so,
That's the 3.5.
yeah, come on.
That's the 3.5 from the Assembly started out as being specifically in response to the closure of the Wassaic facility, which happened just last December, so this is within the year. And that money is made available for reinvestment for the counties, the services that the county has to take over from the state to help reimburse them and help support those programs.
But that's not earmarked in the budget.
It's not specifically because of our work with the, with my colleagues in the staff and the Assembly, it was put in an aid to locality so that it's, but that's what it was addressing. So it wasn't in that particular line in the budget.
All of this is one-time money, right?
This is one-time money, which is why I made the point that we really do need to go back to the drawing board and start looking at how to address the unfunded mandates.
And we'll, in the press release, we'll provide the detail on those three funding streams. Any last questions from the media?
Well, so I guess my question is, yeah, you've got money to offset some of the revenues that you expect to get through the energy tax, not all of it. So what are you going to do about the balance of that money? And let me, because I'll make it too hard to.
Then I can wrap up.
What are you going to do in the looking forward in the 2015 budget? You've got to come up with 5.6.4, 7.something million dollars.
Yeah, I'll start with the second first and then end with the first. The second is the development of the 2015 tentative budget is an iterative process. We began establishing the 15 budget when we adopted the 14 budget. And the legislature, now admittedly, newer members of the legislature wouldn't have experienced this, but certainly those who have served with me over the last 3 years know that we are meeting regularly to address and prepare for the next year's budget. We've done that each year I've been here. Additionally, the county legislature's Budget and Finance Committee is meeting monthly to evaluate county spending in major department areas. The legislature will have an opportunity to continue to make recommendations and suggestions as we move forward, and we will prepare the 2015 budget with the assumption that there is no return to the sales tax on residential energy sources. In fact, the public spoke quite clearly. The response to that will be a degree of state aid and continued reduction of county spending. There is no way around that unless there is a significant economic recovery, and if you've been watching the news lately, that's just not happening in many parts of the state of New York. However, we'll continue our efforts to grow. But the 2015 budget will require spending reductions, as will ending the 2014 year. So to answer the first part, and then we'll sum up, we have not yet received from the state of New York any indication as to what's been received and generated from the residential sales tax, energy sales tax. So not until April 15th will we know what was generated in March. So we can't even give you, or the legislature, a projection as to what amount we're losing. So once that occurs, we'll take appropriate action to restrain and to reduce spending to make it through this fiscal year. But this aid provides us necessary assistance, and we can proceed with the repeal of the sales tax on residential energy sources. Right?
Just one follow-up. Did I hear you just say that this tax will not be included in 2015?
It will not. I will not be returning to it. Have you noticed it's not popular? Well, but admittedly, it is, listen, we are both servants, leaders, and representatives. We provide what we think is in the best interest of the public, and we react to public consideration. If the public, just understand that the next year and a half, will be, without substantive mandate relief, will be very difficult for every county in the state of New York. In fact, there are many who would like to visit this. The Dutchess experience may keep many counties from doing it, which is good for their taxpayers, isn't it? But it will be the reduction of core services. That will be the result without substantive mandate relief. There is no way around that. Okay. With that, we're all available for subsequent questions. I thank you for coming today, and I appreciate your leadership, Assemblywoman Barrett and Senator Ball. Thank you.